Well, I recorded this video the other day, actually it was about a week ago, where I composed a haiku. I called it anti-woke haiku. Um, and in it I said that basically I wouldn't ever call myself a they for the simple reason that there's only one of me, uh, and that I am a he. That was the final line. Now, this thing with pronouns, I would have never guessed it would take the kind of turn that it took. Um, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when what was basically done in progressive circles um, by people who would call themselves liberals or feminists or what have you, is they would insist on what they called at the time inclusive language. Um, so that would be basically instead of using the pronoun he for every, if you talk about a hypothetical person, you would, historically speaking, in the English language, you would say, if a person were to wander into the town of whatever, he would see many things, and would go on from there. You would just use the pronoun he to speak of this hypothetical person, or a person in general. And it wasn't that you couldn't. It wasn't that the person, that one thought to oneself that that person could not possibly be a woman. It was just that he was the term that was proper to use. So around I guess in the 80s and the 90s, especially the 90s, I remember thinking the 90s were just insufferably uh, politically correct, and there were a lot of things that, in certain circles, were nothing at all, the least resembling the way things are today. Uh, Nowhere close. But at the time, I remember thinking that, um, thinking that things had gotten way out of hand. And what they would what they would harangue you about, or if they were militant, or whatever, uh, or especially progressive in their mindset, or especially liberal or on the left, in their mindset, is they would harangue you if you said he, if you just used he. And what you were supposed to do was to say he or she. Uh, Now, in some cases, some writers would make a point of like, oh well, I'm very open minded, and a writer like that would use she instead of he. It's like, how does it feel, men, to be excluded? But most of the time, it was just he or she was what you were expected to write in these, like if you were writing a paper for an English class or something, you were expected to write he or she. I think I would often, not use inclusive language on purpose, because that's just the way I am, and I would just say he, and just dare them to mark me down for it. And that didn't happen. Although sometimes some professors expressed their disapproval. But to their credit, they never became, what's the word? I'll just say vengeful. They never became vengeful about it, even if they felt they. See, here we go. Even if that professor felt very strongly about it. So that was the sort of those were the where pronouns stood at the time. And then I remember people would start to say they instead of he or she. And at the time that was like slightly less obnoxious to me, uh, just because it avoided the whole. Um, I don't know. It was considered incorrect though, and it is incorrect because they is plural, and but at the time when people used they for in a hypothetical situation, considering a singular uh, individual, a singular hypothetical individual, uh, then there was no real agenda behind. It was almost like an attempt to escape the more agendized feeling he or she. So who would have thought that 30 something years later, saying he or she instead of saying they is now like a reactionary thing. It's now just like, oh, how could you? Uh, uh, everybody should be referred to as they. I mean, I read a bio of someone who I was just looking online. Uh, it was some friend of mine or someone who used to be a friend of mine, who I don't really see anymore, and I was wondering just what he was up to, and so you type in a person's name, you all do it, you do it too. Don't tell me you don't. I know we all do things like this, um, and came across his bio, and he works for some company now, and I found it the most disturbing thing. This is a person who I know, you know, if you asked him his pronouns, um, you know, like you can just again this whole thing about choosing your pronouns, like you can just choose to be whatever your heart prompts you to be. Instead of, we start sorry, you're stuck whatever you want to be, you're stuck with being who you are, which is the old and more sensible way of looking at these kinds of things. But this person, his whole bio was written out with they, being the pronoun that was used for him. So it was like, I'll just give him a different name. Bob was born in 1972. They went to college in 1989, and they graduated with a degree in English studies, so everything was, and I don't know if this is just the norm in the corporate world now, where you just default to they. Um, Even it doesn't even matter if if your pronouns are, match your genitalia. Um, they still refer to you as they. Um, so so now, I don't have the same problem that I used to have with writing he or she, because it just doesn't have the same resonance that it used to have. What it used to have the resonance of was of being, of succumbing to, or capitulating to political agenda. But now it's just more correct. It's just correct, you know, and it's better because when you say he or she, it's you're at least admitting to the reality that one person is one person and not more than one person. So it's really weird how that all changed through the times. Uh, but I guess that they have long politicized the use of pronouns in I guess before it wasn't so much pronouns themselves that were politicized. It was pronouns, when you were composing some kind of written record, or whether it's a paper, whether it's an article, or what have you. But today, it's politicized to the extent that it's somehow seen as unacceptable, as I found out by reading my friend's write up, in which he's referred to as they, just as the default, where that's just seen as, oh well, we all need to refer to ourselves as they now, because it really would be quite offensive if we were to refer to ourselves as he, or refer to ourselves as she. It's crazy. And that's just let that be a lesson to you, that if this is the first time you're hearing this, things can always get crazier. I mean, I thought it was crazy. Well, as I was saying, I thought it was crazy to say he or she back or in the 90s. I'm not crazy. I thought it was a sign of having capitulated to agenda. In this case, feminist agenda, or the whole inclusive language scourge, as I saw it back then. But that was as annoying as that was nowhere near. And back then, saying they instead of he or she was sort of like a dodge, and it was incorrect. It was known to be incorrect insofar as, again, they is plural. Uh, but anyway, yep, that's how things are. So now I have people, that video that I recorded with my anti-woke haiku, actually, has been watched a few times, and a few naysayers get on board, and the naysayers always get on and say, well, always can refer to a singular person as they. And the thing is, the people who say this are right in the sense that it's done a lot, but they're not correct in the sense that it is not really, it is not the correct way. It is not grammatically, usage-wise, correct. And it's certainly not correct to call yourself a they, or to think of yourself as a they. Um, you know, you're entitled to, I guess, whatever compels you to. You see yourself a certain way, and um, I mean, you can very sincerely think that you're an aardvark. You can very sincerely think that you are a tree. You can very sincerely think that you are an anteater. You can very sincerely think that you are a spider, but you're not any of those things. Um, you're a human being. You're a person, and beyond that, you are a man if you have male genitalia, and a woman if you have female genitalia. Um, and that's just the way it is, folks. That's just the way it is.